Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the International Webinar on the study of the industrial heavy metal contaminated wastewaters in Georgia, organized by World Research Society in association with IRAJ webinars. On the behalf of entire organizing committee, I'm Isaac Behra, organizing secretary. Would like to welcome you all for this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce the organization. The motto behind this non-profit association is to bridge the gap between students, professors, academics, and industrialists from multidiscipline. Apart from organizing various seminars, expert talks, and conferences, we have various highly rated multidisciplinary journals in the field of science, engineering, technology, and management. Since our inception, we have been arranged various international conferences at various parts of the world like New York, London, Australia, Hong Kong, Dubai, Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, India, etc. More than 1 lakh people across the globe are associates with us, and more than 5 lakh research papers have been presented and published during our journey. Today, I'm glad to welcome you all as a member of this fastest growing network for the advancement of science and technology in terms of research and innovation. Today, we were very much fortunate to have an eminent professor and expert who is joining this webinar as an expert speaker and guest. Her name is Professor Dr. Marine Shavlakadze. Presently, she is working as a head in Research and Development Center at Tbilisi Humanitarian Teaching University. Now, I'd like to welcome our Professor Dr. Marine Shavlakadze to deliver the webinar.
Thank you, dear conference coordinator. So, thank you. So I have one question. I have 1 hour, yeah, for this.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. So my presentation for today is about the study of the international heavy metal contaminated wastewaters in Georgia. Firstly, I'm going to talk about heavy metals and then heavy metals contaminated in examples in Georgia. So heavy metals are principally referred to as metals that have high densities and atomic weights or atomic numbers. And in metallurgy, heavy metals are defined based on densities, and in physics, it's defined based on atomic number, while in chemistry based on chemical behavior. In biochemistry, heavy metals are defined as whether it is Lewis acid, which means electron pair acceptor, performance of the ions in the equation solutions. Some examples of heavy metals are iron, copper, tin, and other elements, metals such as silver, gold, and platinum, which are precious. They were the earliest known metals. Other heavy metals are moreover essential nutrients such as iron, cobalt, and zinc. Some are competitively less dangerous such as ruthenium, silver, and indium, but can be toxic in larger amounts of their definite form. Then some certain heavy metals which are such as cadmium, mercury, and lead are highly poisonous. So heavy metals contamination can be observed in soil, water, such as rivers, air, atmosphere, etc. The composition of physical properties and chemical structure of each of the heavy metals are different. No doubt that heavy metals are toxic as well as hazardous. They have harmful effects. Heavy metals are needed to be handled with care. Some heavy metals tend to be less reactive, whereas some are very reactive. These are thought to be toxic or highly disruptive to the environment. Heavy metals mortify air, water, and soil quality, and consequently cause health issues in plants, animals, people, etc. Some toxic elements are also regarded as beneficial, but only in small quantities for human health. These elements are vanadium, manganese, copper, iron, zinc, strontium, selenium, molybdenum, etc. The deficiency of those metals is harmful and may increase susceptibility to heavy metal poisoning. Chronic level ingestion of heavy metals, toxic or heavy metals, has dangerous effects on the human body, and the impacts are observable only after several years of exposure. According to their toxicity to living organisms, the heavy metals are arranged in the following order: mercury, copper, zinc, nickel, lead, cadmium, chromium, xenon, iron, manganese, and aluminum. So, and as you can see, we have here in periodic table those heavy metals. And about toxic effects for these heavy metals in soils and also in waters. So, soil contaminated with zinc due to fertilizers, urban compost, or emission from municipal waste incinerations and other anthropogenic activities. Also, zinc is an essential nutrient for living organisms, while cadmium is non-essential and potentially toxic for higher plants, animals, and also for humans. Excess concentration of zinc leads to phytotoxicity, limits in its growth of both roots and shoots, senses chlorosis in younger leaves, and later extend to older leaves. Copper is a micronutrient for plants, and its role is in carbon dioxide assimilation and ATP synthesis. It reaches to soils through industrial activities and human activities like mining, and smelting of copper-containing ores. Excess of copper in the soil leads to the growth of plants and its reduction. Mercury reaches the soil mainly in the solid phase through adsorption. It accumulates in the higher aquatic plants. It induces physiological disorders. Chromium is heavy metal and is a serious threat to the environment contamination of soil. Its toxicity is seen in many plants. Its toxicity leads to alterations in the growth of roots, stems, and leaves, deleterious effects on the plant's physiological process, such as photosynthesis, water relations, and mineral nutrition. Cobalt naturally occurs in the Earth's crust as cobaltate, erythrate, and smaltate. Excess of nickel in the soil causes various physiological alterations and diverse toxicity symptoms such as chlorosis and necrosis according to different species, shows impairment of nutrient balance and resulted in the disorder of cell membrane functions. Other symptoms are change in water balance, etc. lead accumulations are gradually decreasing in the plains and the nearby highway and roads as when the law came up with using of lead-free control. Properties of soil include its texture, capacity, capability to absorb water, pH value, and ionic change capacity. Lead, mercury, and chromium are usually tightly fixed in soils, and cadmium and zinc are readily absorbed by the plant roots. The heavy metals are absorbed by the plants through the soil. These metals are absorbed by the plant roots and get accumulated in the softer tissue of plants. These metals are not metabolized by the tissue, so it gets accumulated. From plants, it reaches the human body. Human beings consume the plants containing heavy metals, and the metabolization in humans too is not proper, and thus it gets accumulated there. This further becomes toxic for humans, and they face the consequences in form of the diseases. Plants uptake the heavy metals that are present in soluble components in soil solution or those which can be easily solubilized. Some heavy metals are essential for the plants for their growth and upkeep, but in excess amount, these metals become toxic for the plants and even for the humans too. Plants growing in the soils containing heavy metal show a reduction in growth, yield, and performance too. Growth reduction because of changes in physiological and biological processes in plants growing on heavy metals polluted soil is seen. Continued growth in the size of plants leads to a decrease in the yields, which eventually lead to food insecurity. Soil properties affect metal availability in many ways, like pH is the human factor affecting metal availability in soil. Other factors like density and type of charge in soil colloids, the degree of complexion with ligands, and the soil's relative surface area. Heavy metals reach the soil through the air or atmosphere and absorbed by the roots of the plants and get accumulated in the softer tissues of plants. Plants experience oxidative stress on exposure of heavy metals that finally lead to cellular damage. Also, plants accumulate metal ions that destroy cellular ionic homeostasis. And to overcome the hazardous effect of heavy metal exposure and their accumulation, plants have developed a detoxification method. These mechanisms are mainly based on chillation and subcellular compartment disintegration. About impact of heavy metal contamination on humans. Heavy metals reach the human body through the intake of plants containing them. Heavy metals turn out to be venomous when not metabolized via the body, and thus they accumulate or gather in the softer tissues. Chronic level ingestion of heavy metals, toxic or heavy metals, has hazardous effects on the human body, and the impacts of notifiable only after several years of exposure. Heavy metals enter plants, animals, and human tissues through air, inhalation, diet, humans consuming both plants and animals, or animal consuming plants and in turn humans consuming animals. These metals not only cause hazardous effects to humans only, but are harmful to the soil too. Toxic metals are a threat to both terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. Heavy metals contaminate water bodies, soils, and sediments after releasing from both natural or anthropogenic or human activities. Heavy metals are important to so they accumulate or deposit in the groundwaters. Contamination also occurs when these metals are released into the air through volcanic activities and from different industrial emissions when ultimately return to the land. Cadmium toxicity has been identified in the liver, brain, kidney, lungs, placenta, and bones. It causes muscular weakness, vomiting, abdominal cramps, and nausea. In Japan, IRAJ diseases brought the dangers of cadmium to attention, and zinc is considered non-toxic. However, if taken in excess amount, causes vomiting, impairment of growth, diarrhea, bad urine, reproductive issues, liver and kidney failure, and anemia. Copper exposure to high levels causes hepatic and renal damage. Severe gastrointestinal irritation, skin irritation, etc. Heavy metals are detected in soil with some specific instruments like atomic absorption spectroscopy, AAS, inductively coupled plasma, ICP, and inductively coupled plasma mass spectroscopy, ICP-MS, and X-ray fluorescence and spectroscopy are used. Among all these instruments, atomic absorption spectroscopy gives pressure, quantitative determination. The research basically focuses on the study to find out the presence of heavy metals and quantity or amount of heavy metals, or what the heavy metals are. And about heavy metals contamination of water. Water pollution includes contamination in liquid forms. Water pollution is of both marine pollution and river pollution. Industrial factor and consumer-based fertilizers and pesticides and acid rainfall in the soils, and finally reached these heavy metals into streams, rivers, lakes, and groundwater. Heavy metals tend to bioaccumulate, and thus they are dangerous. It is well said that because of water, life exists in the biosphere, and water is a universal solvent, whereas inorganic and chemicals and organic chemicals are dissolved in water, and the environmental importance are also dissolved in water. Both aquatic ecosystems are eat fresh water, or marine, or are affected because of pollution. Water contamination is a serious environmental issue and has a direct impact on animals, plants, and human beings. Heavy metals are tremendously lethal to aquatic life, even at small concentrations. Histopathological modifications in the tissues of aquatic organisms, such as fish, insects, and other aquatic life, are seen because of the toxicity of the water. As these metals don't decompose, they accumulate in the soft tissues of aquatic animals as well as in plants too. Contamination by heavy metals from many other various sources is a major threat to the water and its organism. One source is effluents which are released from the factories and industries. And the impact of heavy metal contamination of water. It releases toxic substances which are harmful to aquatic life. Heavy metals tend to bioaccumulate and thus they are dangerous for all living organisms. Bioaccumulates mean to boost the concentration of any chemical in any living organism eventually. And increase in water pollution leads to the release of toxic substances, pathogenic germs, which require more oxygen to decompose, radioactivity, etc. For example, eutrophication is a condition in which lack of oxygen in the water body is seen, which is caused by unnecessary algae growth, since it has enrichments of pollutants. It kills all the aquatic plants, small fishes, large fish, and human beings, and finally degrades the environment. The quality of water everywhere is degrading day by day. It is becoming less suitable for any work and for drinking purposes. It is completely unfit, but still some people have no choice. They filter the water and then they consume it, and the animals have no idea whether it's suitable for drinking purposes or not. And after grazing, they come to the river, ponds, or small lakes to drink water. Along with the water, they take the toxic metals in them, and slowly this toxic metal affects their system and makes them ill and finally leads to their death. And the impact of heavy metal contamination on human. Animal graze on the plants which are contaminated with heavy metals and then gulp the same water. The marine leaves that breed in heavy metals contaminated water. Both such metals form a mass in their tissue and milk. In short, every single living organism is dependent on each other for its survival. And when humans consume these plants and animals, they eat the toxic substances along with them. Specific metals have specific toxicity, and toxicity also depends on the concentration of the metals consumed. Cadmium is poisonous at a low level. In humans, is lead to renal dysfunction, bone defects, osteoporosis, increases blood pressure and myocardial dysfunctions. It is very harmful and is mostly captivated by ingestion with food and water and through inhalation. One of the serious effects is the teratogenic effect. Poisoning of lead also causes cessation of the production of hemoglobin, kidney dysfunction, and damage of this central nervous system. Zinc has the same effect as lead. Its excessive concentration causes impaired growth and reproduction, diarrhea, bloody urine, vomiting, kidney failure, and anemia. Mercury is toxic as it causes spontaneous abortion, gastric intestinal disorders, etc. Many health-related issues occur because of protein deficiency, including reduction of chondroblastic or osteoblastic activity. In this condition, normal growth and formation of bones and cartilage get manipulated, which finally result in irreparable body deformates in the growing child and its adults. Terrestrial life suffers damage to the liver, kidney, heart, and body joints. The liver and kidney produce metallothioneous causing toxicity, which is very hazardous. So in Georgia, as well as in the whole world, industrial waste is a serious problem. It is safe placing, utilization, and decontamination is still problematic. There is no industrial waste landfill in the country, so they are placed in the area adjacent to the enterprises. These kinds of landfills are a serious threat. Most of them are located very close to the rivers. As a result, due to sediments and floods, large amounts of waste pour into the rivers and through rivers into the reservoirs. So it's known that in Imereti and Kvemokartli regions, rivers such as Lilila, Mashavera, Poladauri, and Kazretula are ecologically polluted from natural and anthropogenic impacts. Rivers Mashavera, Poladauri, and Kazretula are polluted by tailing runoff of the enterprise Madneuli. As for the river Lilila, it is polluted by waste from Giatur-Manganuni enterprise in Giatura municipality, where manganese deposit area. River Lilila, that is already polluted, passes Zestaponi municipality and gets much more polluted by the waste of Zestaponi ferroalloy factory, which is another source of pollution of the river. The pollution of sewage and washing water by harmful toxic elements is confirmed based on the results of complex chemical and biological analysis of waters that have been repeatedly performed. In the above-mentioned rivers that are of agricultural and household use, the overabundance of heavy metals such as iron, copper, lead, zinc, cadmium, manganese, nickel, etc., is observed from time to time. It is confirmed that using the rivers for irrigation is associated with a large ecological risk. So this is sample. This is area for Khazretula River, Mashavera, and Poladauri River. This is Tbilisi region. This is open cast mine, which is very close for this river. We analyzed in our samples pH and heavy metals contamination in our research, our rivers, collection and our analysis of surface water samples, laboratory analysis, field analysis, statistical analysis. So this is one of my students, River Khazretula, taking water samples. So this is River Mashavera, River Poladauri, and River Oirila. So, and as you can see, we have here determination of heavy metal content in study rivers, concentrations milligram per liter for zinc, cadmium, manganese, iron, copper, lead, arsenicum, and pH. This is method, and this is MAC, which means maximum amount of this concentration. So we have name of the river, Khazretula, Mashavera, Poladauri, and Oirila. And the results show that the study rivers, Khazretula, Mashavera, Poladauri, and Oirila are polluted, contain large amounts of heavy metals such as cadmium, manganese, and iron. Industrial wastewaters have a low pH content ranging from 2 to 3 on average, very low pH, and high concentration of cadmium in the river Khazretula, Poladauri, and Oirila, and manganese and iron. The result of our study shows that the cadmium content in the river Khazretula is 8 times and the manganese content is 3 times higher than the permissible standard, while the iron content in the river Mashavera is twice higher than the permissible standard. The content of cadmium and iron in the river Poladauri is twice higher than the permissible standard. The cadmium content in river Oirila is 3 times and the manganese content is twice higher than the permissible standard. And as a conclusion, from the description of heavy metals, it can be concluded that those are toxic for all living beings, but the difference is in its concentration. If the concentration is low, the toxicity is also low, but if it is high, it could be fatal. Heavy metals are present everywhere. These are present in the soil, deposited in water and present in the atmosphere too. This pollute the environment as well as human life. Through soil, it is absorbed by plants, further by the herbivorous animals, which in turn are eaten by the carnivorous animals as well as by the humans. These metals don't go off easily from the plants and animals. Instead, it gets accumulated in the soft tissues of plants and animals and further reaches humans. The heavy metals which are in the water degrade the quality of water and make it unfit for drinking for all living beings and even for other purposes. It is a threat to aquatic life. Because of this, the number of dissolved oxygen decreases, and thus the life which is under the aquatic does not get sufficient oxygen to breathe, which could lead to the death of the fishes, aquatic insects, animals, and plants. Heavy metals are present in the atmosphere in the form of aerosols, air, etc., which directly goes into our lungs and then slowly to all our body parts through breathing. These heavy metals reached into the environment through anthropogenic activities or human activities by the industrial influence. Discharge of industrial and hospital waste directly into the water without being treated. Similarly, the sewage are also released into water without being treated through vehicular emission. So we should control our activities and start thinking about the future. Already a lot of damage has been done to the environment, and now it is time to take preventive measures that includes forestation. Sewage waste should be treated before releasing into rivers. Non-biodegradable waste should not be dumped here and there. Instead, recycle it and then again use it. Having and radioactive metals should be properly incinerated. So, references. Thank you for your attention. So, and I'm ready if you have any question. So,
I think there will be no question, ma'am.
No question, yeah?
Yes, ma'am. All right. So thank you, Professor, for sharing your valuable time and for joining this webinar. On the behalf of the organizing committee, Worldresearchsociety and IRAJ webinars, I'd like to present a certificate of appreciation to you, ma'am. Kindly accept it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for our guests and for listening. Thank you very much.
And I'd like to thank all our sponsors and coordinators. I would also like to thank our president. We will happy to hear your comments and compliments or suggestion at our Facebook and Twitter page. This video will be available shortly in our YouTube channel. Kindly subscribe our official YouTube channel, IRAJ Conferences and Seminars, for all past and upcoming webinars and expert lectures. Thank you. See you on another webinar soon. Thank you, Professor, for sharing your valuable time.
As organizer, and I'm happy for today's webinar. And I wish you success, your organization, and also our today's guests. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.